Yo, yo, yo. Hey guys, welcome back to another amazing edition of the Best Practices Show podcast. Strategic planning and goal setting is so important to your business and your life. And a lot of people get it wrong. In a recent segment in one of the webinars we did with Miranda Beeson, one of our amazing coaches, we talk about why most dentists fail at goal setting and how you can succeed. Here's the exact process we use, and we show you how you can make this work to change everybody's life. It's the audio version. Please listen up. And if you follow along, I promise you it works. So I hope you guys enjoy it, and we'll see you soon. Thank you guys for joining us. Add your questions to the chat. We're so happy to help you in any way. But today we're going to be talking about strategic goal setting for a thriving dental practice. And I have the amazing, I feel like it's kind of like you've been knighted by the BPA as, the amazing Miranda Beeson. She is not only an amazing coach, but she is also on our leadership team and our director of Director of Education here. So she's just brilliant. And so today
Kirk, can I interrupt real quick? I love that you just said that we want to be helpful today. And I feel like I have a new catchphrase and I love it. And I tell people whenever they tell me you were so helpful, I say, I am so glad. That's the biggest compliment you can give me because helpful is my most favorite thing to be. And I think that that's how I ended up here, to be honest, because I think ACT is the most helpful organization to our profession. And we're so great at building up and motivating and helping people work through problems. And so it just aligns perfectly. Being helpful is one of my most favorite things to be, and I get to do it every single day. So for the next hour, we're just going to be filling our buckets because we're going to just be helpful. It's going to be awesome.
Yeah, this is going to be awesome. And that is your middle name. That is exactly who you are. So quick story about helpful. An organization we still use today, one of my favorite out there that I use a lot of their tools. I called the person on the phone and she's like, no, we're a help first organization. So I'll give you anything you need today. I've never forgotten that. I am often underwhelmed when I talk to people at organizations and she's like, whatever you need, I'm going to help you today. That's one of our values is help first. And I know, and she said something like that. If I help you enough, you're going to come back. So great. And speaking of help first, we've got this right around the corner. Again, if you've been on any of our webinars, you're going to hear us talk about this. It's one of our favorite things we ever do. It's called the To the Top Study Club. I always had a dream of creating something where it was our own study club of the best information, super helpful, very good tools, and be surrounded by other like-minded people. In dentistry, it's very lonely to try to figure this out by yourself, and it's hard to be an entrepreneur. So once a quarter, we get together in a workshop format called the To the Top Study Club. It's on Fridays. It's here. It's right in our educational space right here. We now have 2 groups of 50 running concurrently in the quarters, and we offer people a golden ticket. Now, here's what that means. We believe in it so much that you don't even have to pay. You can just show up and hang out with us for free and take all the information, join it for a day. We believe it's so much. You can come kick the tires, and if you hate it, no harm, no foul. Let's chalk it up as a great day of education. Take all the information, go back and improve your practice in your life. But we know that won't happen. The people that stay are like, these are my people. This is great stuff. And let me point to one other challenge that you have is like, again, it goes back to the thinking. We sharpen your thinking. It's one day where you get away from your practice and your family and all the noise and all that stuff is important, but you go and you think with other thinkers. Selfishly, I love it because I learned so much from other dentists across the country that throw things into the room. I'm like, that is brilliant. How did you do that? And they share everything. So talk about help.
That's one of my most favorite things about it too, is how much everybody that's in the room helps each other. Like, we love being helpful, but we have a room full of experts, people living these same issues, challenges, celebrations every single day. And I know you and I often debrief at the end of a To the Top Study Club, and we share some of our favorite stories, and they're pretty much always stories about participants and how they engaged with each other. And did you see that so-and-so connected with so-and-so? And like, that was so cool. I just love how willing everybody in our community is to help one another.
Totally. We just finished a call with some incredible people that are helping us. And they said, people need clarity on how to solve their problems. And the second craving they have is a sense of belonging. And that's really what To the Top Study Club's all about. So join us. And we have a personal concierge. Her name is Gina, Gina, and she will be your personal concierge and help you arrange the visit, and you guys will absolutely love it. So if you're not familiar with what we do, kind of the customer journey around here is we are developing and improving our best practices association, which is a whole host of tools and solutions to the biggest challenges. You're going to see an incredible community out back there. So join us at the BPA, and you can really learn how to do this on your own with the help of everybody in our online platform. And that is level 1 of the journey. Or you can do it in a group, which is the To the Top Study Club, which we already mentioned. So you can pick your journey here. And lastly, if you're like, I've tried everything, can you just help me do it? The answer is yes. We have what are called our pro coaching program. And as you've already experienced and will experience today, Miranda is one of our pro coaches. We have an amazing group of pro coaches that help you get it done. The cool thing about coaching is that you can't do this on your own. It's way too hard to figure this out. A coach holds you accountable, helps you think better, and build the right thing. So join us in any one of those if you're inclined. We also have all of these resources, whether it be our webinars, our master classes. We were talking this morning, there's probably over 400 master classes back there from the greatest clinical minds dating all the way back to the COVID conference. So join us back there. There's an incredible, robust community of people asking questions. There were questions even this week about, how do you guys do this? And everybody shares their thoughts. It's awesome. And we have an app. It's going to get even better. You'll soon be able to download it on the Apple iTunes store. We'll let you know when that's happening, but you can take it on the go right now. So if you want to watch some great clinical stuff or some great practice management stuff, or you just want to hang out and think better, you'll see it all back there. So make sure you check that out. So today we're going to be talking about strategic goal setting for a thriving dental practice. Now, this is a key piece and a key cornerstone into what we do, and we're just going to pull back the curtains and show you what we do. And so we're going to cover a couple things today, and we'll cover these in these buckets in the next hour. We're going to talk about why this is so important. And as you've already mentioned, and Miranda's already mentioned, it's good to be talking about this in August. We actually do our To the Top Study Club on this particular subject, and we do it in, October, so that you're not doing your strategic planning on December 27th, which is what I used to do every year. Mm-hmm. And we'll take you through the progression of this. It's going to start with the successful outcomes, kind of the large picture, the 30,000 foot view of what you're building, the goals that come from that. And that's kind of the 15,000 foot view. And then how to develop targets, which is the ground level, and then aligning on the OGT, objectives, goals, and targets with your team. And then we'll cover some final takeaways. Any thoughts before we get rolling, Miranda?
I'm just so excited. This is one of my absolute favorite things to work through with teams, because a lot of the times when teams come to us, and we're going to talk about the why in just a minute, and why strategic planning is so important, and being intentional about what you're setting course on day in and day out, not just showing up and letting the day happen to you year over year. But when we really stop and land the plane and help a doctor or a dental practice owner to think about, what do you want? Like, right. What do you really want? And settle into that. Sometimes it's a couple of calls before we really get through really ironing out, what is it that you want? How do you want to feel? And so we're going to really talk about, this is so much bigger than like, I want $10,000 more a month, or right. It is about, how do you want to feel? How can you imagine your day flowing if you woke up every morning and you were excited to go to work. If you came home at the end of every day and you didn't get that look from your spouse across the dinner table of like, dude, I wish you were just more present with us at dinner. Like, how can we help you to feel better about what you chose to do with your life? Because like you and I say, like dentistry, I just don't think there's any better path to go down. I have 3 kids. I talk to them about it every day. Like, I think it's an amazing career, full of opportunity, and you can be so fulfilled. But if you don't stop and really think about, what does fulfill me? Maybe what I'm doing isn't filling my bucket. And that's why I struggle to be focused around the dinner table with my family. That's why I don't want to get out of my car in the morning. That's why I take a deep sigh every time a team member knocks on my door. How can we help you to think differently through a tool, a framework that puts it in a perspective that you can really understand? And I think I see the biggest return with teams on this. And it's helpful throughout our years of coaching together to check in month over month. How close are we to getting to that goal that you want? How close are we to that outcome? Do you feel better? Did you feel better this weekend? Did you go out on the boat? Did you enjoy yourself? Like those are the things that, to me as a coach, make me feel like I'm winning, is when I hear things like that from my clients. So I'm just excited to talk about it and share it with as many people that want to hear the message.
I told you guys she's brilliant. So great minds think alike, or actually better minds help me think better. I just want to piggyback on a couple things that you said so well. Okay, I want you to think about this if you're watching this webinar. We meet a lot of dentists and people say, well, I'm not happy. It's not usually dentistry that's making them unhappy. It's how they're doing it, or they're not thinking clearly about it, or they blame insurance. And get out of that. Like, seriously, if you can think better, you'll do better. You also spend 30% of your life at work. And so whether you like dentistry or not, or don't love it, like, make it a little bit better every day. It's 30% of the breaths you take on the planet are at work. So it benefits everybody when you're happier at work. The next one is time is the new rich. Strategic planning done well will save you thousands and thousands of hours of wasted time. It will also make you millions more in dollars if you really want to talk about money. Now, that's not the goal, but like, it happens. People just think better, they do better. And then lastly, some of you are listening like, oh God, strategic planning, this sounds terrible. Okay, this is not a foreign concept. If you've been around high levels of interdisciplinary dentistry, you know treatment planning is the most important conversation. Treatment planning done well and executed well is beautiful. And so this is about treatment planning your business for a desired, predictable outcome. And I'm here to tell you, you can do it just like treatment planning if done well. And then lastly, I have another thought, but I'm actually going to say.
I was say I have a thought, and I know we got to move on to like actually sharing with people how we do this. But when you just said, 30% of your time, the breaths that you take are spent in the workplace, and don't you want it to feel good? Don't you want it to fill your bucket? I'm going to challenge that and take it one step further, that you also have the ability as a dental practice owner. We talked to the Top Study Club over the summer about creating a healthy team and workplace appreciation, and how do we make sure that the people that are stewarding our practice for us also feel fulfilled. And I will tell you, you have this beautiful gift and this beautiful opportunity as a dental practice owner to not only impact your own life, but to impact and amplify that beyond into the lives of the people that are dedicating their 30% of their life to your company, to your organization. And so when your team members get up and they show up every single day and they choose to come be at your practice to support your vision, we can fulfill our own selves by improving our practice. And in turn, we are amplifying and extending that out to also improve the lives of the 5, 6, 26, 36, 56 people that steward our practice and our vision for us. So it's a huge gift that you have to be an entrepreneur. And I know it can feel like a burden, but we want to help you figure out how to make it feel like a gift to you and a gift to your team and your patients.
So well said. On that note alone, 61% of dentists say the biggest challenge they will have for the rest of their careers is finding, keeping, and growing great people. This is where you set yourself apart and you truly become a talent magnet of the best people, because team members are really smart now, and they know how they can have a better life too by working with someone who cares about this, that does the planning. And let's face it, most dentists do more planning of their vacations than they do their business. You know, I've seen dentists plan golf trips better than they actually plan like their practice. So let's not do that. So why is this important? We talk to dentists every single day that feel overwhelmed. And again, it's not dentistry, it's how they think about it. It's just so much coming at them. You know, they're working with patient after patient with the speed and declining reimbursements and blah, blah, blah. And it's a lot. And so you go home and you've given all your energy to your patients, and you come home and all these people that you care about, you're like cooked. You're cooked. And so this is a vicious cycle that keeps adding to itself, and you start to tell yourself a narrative that isn't a great one. So when I send a young kid over to your office and say, hey, this kid wants to be a dentist, tell them to be a dentist. And they're like, I don't know if that's a good idea. You know what I mean? So we want you to think better. And despite working harder than ever, a lot of dentists are feeling a lack of return, or they're just not making any progress. And that really is a big challenge. You start to feel a little ill when you're not making any progress. I think one of the secrets in life is it doesn't have to be perfect, but you do have to be making progress, whether it be on your health plan, whether it be on your investments, whether it be on your practice. If you look at it, you go, it's moving in the right direction. It's moving the way I want it to. It's awesome. And without clear direction and intentional goals, it's going to go in any path. It's the whole, like, which path should you take? Well, I don't know. Well, any of them, just take any of them. And you'll probably do okay. But the question you got to ask yourself is like, is this what I want?
And Kirk, to the point that you mentioned earlier, which is like there is a mass amount of information about that out there. So if you aren't in control of or taking the reins on where your practice is going to go, you know, part of what you were talking about around being overwhelmed, you're overwhelmed also by the amount of information within our profession telling you what you should be doing. Right? Trying to guide you into, you should do this. You should be doing that. Do you see this guy? He's over here doing this. Why aren't you doing that? And if you don't stop and think to yourself, but what do I really want out of this profession? You may fall into one of those paths that doesn't really fit who you are and what you want to be. And then it does feel more like a burden. It feels more stressful. It's a pain point on any given day because, like you said, you open a forum, you open a magazine, you go to a conference, like there's so many opinions about where you should take your practice. And so if you just listen to external forces and you don't listen to your own voice to start to drive where you want your practice to go, how are you going to ever get there?
I love it. I absolutely love it. And I say this all the time, and I'm 54, so I don't care anymore. And I'll just keep repeating it. It's true. And it's terrible. It's absolutely terrible. This is true about me. Nothing makes me a better dad. Nothing than when today was a great day. And it's terrible. It's terrible. I should see a therapist. I should probably get some help from that. I always want to be a great dad, and I feel like I have a pretty good disposition, but when today goes predictably and it's around good people, I come flying home and like, I'm ready to go. And years ago, that wasn't the case. Sarah would go, what's going on? I go, oh, it's great. And she'd go, oh my gosh, like your eyes tell me a different story. I'm like, it was terrible. I'm sorry. Like, and men try to compartmentalize. I can't speak for being a woman, but like, I'll just try to park something, but it's still there. It's like in the window on the patio staring at me. And I'm like, go away, close the curtains, and it's still there. So we want you guys, we hope with this webinar, you can do a couple of the following things. You can identify the outcomes that matter most to you. We're going to talk about what outcomes are. We're going to help you develop a focus for progress. Remember, progress is the magic nectar ingredient. It's a sweet spot. Like when you get progress in anything, you're like, this is moving. It's great. And then we're going to show you how to commit to some actions that will feed these outcomes. So there's going to be a progression in this. And then we're going to help you assign targets. And you can see in the way that Miranda created this, because she's the director of our education, a lot of dentists start here and they go, well, we need to start with the targets because we're going to grow our production, but they don't know what they're really building. And so we're going to show you the healthy, right way to do this so that it's predictable. And you can use this probably for the next 20 years of practice if you choose to do that. Now, I actually downloaded this from an HBR article on strategic planning, and I like the visual of it. And I just want you to think about this. Miranda is going to speak to this. We're both going to speak. Like the ultimate goals, what are you building? And Behrendt mentioned this in our morning meeting this morning is like, we talk a lot about vision, but like, what's the strategy? Like, what are you really building? And sometimes, so let me give you an example. Sometimes people say this, I'm getting an associate so I can take time off. I'm like, that's not a vision. Do you know what I mean? And that's hypothetical. Or I'm going to get off a Delta because it's going to make my life better. Those are components, but like, what are you really building? Or people say, I'm going to get a partner. Why are you going to get a partner? So we can practice together and I can work less. Well, if you look at the data, people that work in multi-doctor practices, according to the ADA, don't work more. Don't work less. They work more. They work more than most dentists do. So, I'm not saying that that's not possible, but what are you building? Just my question to you is, what are you building? That's the ultimate question. And then what's the strategy? Like, how are we going to get to what you're building? And so make sure the vision is in alignment. And a big piece of this in working with a great coach is making sure you're building something that fits your personality. I never dreamed of a day where I'd have 60 employees. I don't want that many. Do you know what I mean? I don't like a lot of activity. I actually like to have slow, good conversations. I can only talk to one person at a time. So make sure that what you're building is like congruent with your personality, your temperament, and who you are. And then we're going to go into tactics. What are some of the things that you can do right now that are targets, that are priorities, that help build on each one of these? They're congruent with your strategy and ultimately fit the vision for where you want to be in 5 to 10 years. Again, I'll just use me as an example. I'm 54. In 10 years, I'm going to be 64. That's a good number for me to be thinking about. I can also visualize the ages of my kids. I'm hoping I'll have some grandkids by then. So like, I don't want to be tied to a building and working and all that kind of stuff. And so you have to ask yourself the same question. And to Miranda's point, I have a team. I want them to enjoy this journey. This isn't just about me in this whole process. And as you can see, there's less certainty into the future. I don't know what my health is going to look like. I don't know what my life is going to look like. So I got to leave some space for not knowing the certainty. So Miranda, feel free to jump in here because I
was just going to share one thought on what you just said. I love this because I love that we get to be authentic and just share thoughts that pop in our mind. I worked in a practice with a dentist that was getting older years ago. And I say getting older, I mean, I'm in my mid 40s now, so old is a little different than it used to be for me when I was in my 20s. But, he was approaching 60. And in the world of dentistry, patients even start to wonder, what's going to happen to me when Dr. Smith decides to retire. And I remember working in a practice where a patient asked the doctor during the exam, hey, doc, you and I aren't getting any younger. What's your plan in, 5 or 10 years from now? Who's going to be my dentist? And I just thought that was like so cool. And I had never really thought about that before. And the hard part was the dentist had never thought about that before either. And he didn't have an answer for that patient. And talk about, trust. And that can take some trust pretty quick because now that patient starts to think, I wonder what is going to happen to me. Is he just going to sell? And now I don't have a dentist. Is there going to be some random person that comes in here and takes over and they don't give me the same type of care? So there's something to be said. We keep talking about the why. There's a why for you. There's a why for the impact you can have on your team. And it does trickle all the way down to our patients, because if you're in the back half of your career and you're not thinking about what's happening 3 years from now, 5 years from now, 10 or 12 years from now, and what that looks like for the future of your practice, you're not going to have the answers for your patients or your team when they get to the point where they start having that little thought in the back of their mind. So it just made me think about that exchange. I remember I was a hygienist at the time and being chairside and the patient asking the doctor that question. And he was a little stunned, to be honest, like, I haven't put a whole lot of thought into that just yet. And that wasn't really the answer that the patient wanted to hear.
Yeah, that's oh my gosh, so good, Miranda. And we got to keep this to less than an hour because I can piggyback on that. But let's start with outcomes. And so it's very important to talk about outcomes. This is the 30,000 foot view, because if you've been in dentistry, 20 years ago, it was like outcomes were like, we're going to go from 1 million to 2 million. That's not an outcome. Like, that's part of the process. And let me just say one thing about money is that, and I can say this for sure, is that more money doesn't make you happier. it gives you access, and it does allow you some things. But I've seen people make a lot of money and they've traded their health and their time and some relationships for money. And that's a bad trade. I'm here to tell you, because we do it day in and day out, we can help you make more money than you've ever made. But I'm going to be careful that you don't trade your time. And I'm going to encourage you, while we're not health coaches, to not trade your health and your relationships for the money, because that just creates more resentment. And lastly, because I don't care anymore and I'm very transparent about this, I've watched some incredible dentists spend a lot of time, make a lot of money, and then get divorced once. And while I'm not a marriage therapist, and then get divorced a second time. And we do know one dentist that's been divorced 3 times. Okay. That is just a tough trade. At that point, you have no money, no one trusts you, and all that kind of stuff. And you spent your life working to trade it. So I'm just here to tell you, I don't have a perfect marriage. I know what my goals are. I want to stay true to them. And one of my outcomes is I want to stay married to Sarah forever, like whatever that means. I want to stay healthy. I do want to make a good, but I also want to have a life, and I want the freedom. So a successful outcome it's the answer to your greatest stressors and obstacles. They answer questions like, what challenges and obstacles do you want to resolve? I'll give you one. I want to go to work and love the people I work with. That was my number one thing. Now, that was a long journey. And I can say I'm at the first plateau of that, and I'm enjoying that. And so I want to keep that. I want to preserve that. I also want control of my time. I also don't want to travel all over the country. Now, that's, again, unique to me. But those are things, what challenges and obstacles do you want to resolve? Do you want to just enjoy going to work? Do you want to take a breath every once in a while? Do you want to slow down? That's okay. The other thing it answers is, what do you want more of? What do you want less of? That could be procedural. That could be, I don't know. It could be anything. What do you want? You want more joy. Like, that's a good one. What do you want less of? So we do what's called the brainstorming activity in our OGT, so it doesn't restrict you. You can just vomit on a piece of paper about anything that comes into your brain, and it's not right or wrong. It's just how I feel. I want to diagnose it. Part of it is diagnosing the pain of, what do I want less of? What do I want more of? And what do you want your life and practice to be like in the future? So some things to consider. That's one piece of it. The second piece of it is starting with successful outcomes that resonate on a personal and professional level ensures that the goals are aligned with what truly matters. There's nothing more powerful than when somebody creates what's called meaningful work. It's a huge component of our joy. Is like, this is, our core purpose here, and I don't mind sharing, better practice, better life. It's not a job, it's a calling. I want to help people. If it doesn't check 2 boxes, we're not doing it. Like, if somebody's going to be giving up a life to create a better, we're not doing it. So I think the core purpose has got to create an energy around the people that it serves and the people that work in it. Don't you think, Miranda?
And I completely agree with you. I think that is the piece that sometimes we miss out on. And I think it's because sometimes it's difficult, it's hard, it's challenging, it's uncomfortable to maybe think about, are we not there? Or, if you really dig into, what do I want more of? What do I want less of? It does make you face some of the hard truths about maybe where you are currently. And that can be hard to stop and focus on. And so if you can take that time in a productive way with a framework, with a coach, if you have one to help you work through those thoughts and those feelings, to say, I promise you, we can get to the other side. And we can get there. But you have to stop and actually reflect on what it is that you want. And then that core purpose, I was just with a team yesterday down in Florida. They're amazing. And we spent a lot of time talking about that core purpose. And that core purpose, along with their core values, really filtering what we do here in this office. And they're making a lot of big culture changes in their practice. And they're making a lot of big strategical changes in their practice in terms of the type of things that they're doing in the practice, and even eliminating some things that they're currently doing that they think just aren't fitting that purpose. And why are we even doing this? And we talked about that why do we get up, and what fires us up to want to be here every day? If that's not the thing that we're filtering all of these decisions through, we're not going to be happy in the end, no matter how much money ends up in the bank account.
Amen, sister. To quote a great influencer, Simon Sinek, people don't buy what you do. They buy why you do it. It transcends everything. So well said. It's the why. Another thing to consider about successful outcomes, basing your goals on successful outcomes, which are things that really matter. It helps you prevent from falling into these common pitfalls of setting goals that are disconnected to your vision. And I'm just going to go there because I want this to be helpful. If you're working on a Saturday, I'm here to tell you that's dumb. Some people are just frustrated and then are burnt out. And I go, well, how many days do you work? Well, I work on Saturdays. I'm like, that's dumb. That's where the magic happens. If you're working on in the evenings, that's silly. I'm sorry, it's silly. I'm here and I'm hoping this will be motivating. What that means for you is a successful outcome would be like, I just want to enjoy my work week and I want to have balance and I want this work to be in a container. When you tell yourself, I'm not working on a Saturday because what I do is very, very valuable for other human beings. And so is the work that my team does. People are going to come in the hours that we work. That is one of the greatest days of your life. Mm-hmm. Because now people come to you because of you instead of being on a list. And now you're not chasing people and devaluing what you do. When you say you're just a dentist and I just do crowns, well, you're right. Don't do that. Think better. What you do is crazy powerful and valuable. And so successful outcomes sometimes are like, listen, I just want a life. I want a regular work week. I want work to be predictable and I want to go home. I loved being the assistant to the assistant on my son's baseball team for many years. And then they needed real coaches. But I got to kick dirt in the evening with those kids. And it's some of my greatest memories of all time, and drinking beers with dads afterwards, not being at work. So you can have the same thing. It's America. There's no rules here. So an example of successful outcomes is I just want to reduce the amount of stress daily. And I want to increase the time that I spend with my family. Now, let me go to the family thing. My kids are 23, 21, 19, 16. You get 16 summers. It goes so fast. I got one more summer, well, possibly a second summer with my son. And I hope that you create enough value in strategic planning with your business and your practice. So you go, no, I'm taking this time and being here for watching these kids and hey, kids need parents. I'm not the perfect parent, but half of it is just being there and allowing yourself to be there, whether you're tired or not. I'm present type of a thing. So you can do that in dentistry. I also want to grow the practice financially, where we're maintaining a strong team culture. I'll tell you, that's one of the greatest goals you could ever create, because the greatest secret in dentistry or any business is when you get an amazing group of people that are bought in on your values and your culture, and now you can do almost anything and they find a way to succeed. And I want to reduce the number of questions my team has to ask me throughout the day. That's a good one. Can you speak to any of this, Miranda?
Can I? This is what I talk to people about every day. Yeah. So I look at that second one and I think I want to grow the practice financially while maintaining a strong team culture. Now, what I imagine that brainstorm session looked like when that doctor was sorting out through successful outcomes and ideas is, what do I want more of? What do I want less of? I want less bickering. I want less toxicity. I want less, fighting in the break room. I want more people engaged with patients when I'm out of the room, not sitting on their cell phones. There's a lot of things that get written down when doctors are brainstorming through that exercise. And it's usually little things like that we can then talk through and build into like a general theme. Like all of those things to me sound like we need to work on the culture in your practice. We need to work on the values and those behaviors that are showing up. And so while that's worded really pretty, it's real messy in the development process to get to that pretty thematic sentence that you see there. When you see, I want to reduce the number of questions my team has to ask me throughout the day, that's a simple one. Yeah. And that might have been literally what they wrote down during the brainstorm, but it was so powerful because what we hear a lot, especially with smaller teams that maybe don't have an office manager that exclusively manages the office, and the burden of most decisions falls on the doctor. You and I talk about E-Myth, being the entrepreneur, the technician, and the manager all at the same time. It's really, really hard. And one of the most stressful things that doctors share with us is that in itself. We talked about it on a podcast not too long ago. You come back to your desk in between patients, there's 7 Post-its. It's like, and they're knocking on your door and you're just like, I just want to do a crown without being interrupted, Yeah. And so it can be as simple as I want just less questions throughout the day, or it can be as big as we have a lot of problems that culminate into, we need to work on our culture so that we can all just feel happy and feel like I want to hear more laughter in the hallways.
100%. And one of the things that may come out of this is you say, I'm going to build a leadership team, a great leadership team. So I don't get all these questions. It's one of the greatest things I've ever done. Miranda's on my leadership team. I don't get questions during the day because I have leaders. You're not really a leader till you grow other leaders that grow other leaders. And when you grow other leaders that can solve problems, it reduces the cognitive rigor. That's my favorite. That's my new phrase of the year. So it's like, I don't want the fatigue of making all these decisions. So the whole idea of showing you successful outcomes is that you could start to diagnose this pain of what you don't want or what you do want more, and that becomes powerful. Now we're going to go to the next level of this, which is once you've diagnosed this pain or this joy of what you want more, and you've really given voice to it. And it's not like money. It's like, I want exactly this. Now you can start to develop goals. You want to talk about this one, Miranda, or do you want me to take it?
I can.
All right.
Goals are the actionables that are specific and measurable. Things that are actions that you can, again, we talked about the views. I see you have it written there, the 50,000 foot view. This is coming down just a notch from living up there in the conceptual mindset of like, what do I want more of? What do I want less of? And we're starting to develop what are things we can actually do. What can I do? What can my team do throughout this year? Because these are annual goals. When we're looking at this, we're talking about annual planning. So what do I want more of or less of that by the end of this year, I can feel like we've accomplished my successful outcome? And then that feeds down into what goals do we need to put into place for this year? They're going to help to say we've achieved that successful outcome. So sometimes you're going to ask yourself, okay, I want, one of the things we were talking about was I want less questions, to be asked of me throughout the day. That's my successful outcome. By the end of this year, I want to be able to say that people can solve their own problems, or at least I don't have to solve every single problem that shows up. And so you can say, well, what would need to change or evolve or start or stop to help me get closer to achieving that successful outcome? And you might say like, well, I'm going to need to start developing my team to be able to solve problems on their own. I might need to integrate someone else who can help take on some of the decision making throughout the day when I'm unavailable because I'm being a technician. You stop and you ask yourself, once you have that outcome in place, what needs to change, evolve, start, or stop to help me move closer to that? Another question you can ask yourself is, for me to realize this, like, what must occur? Like, it might be like, in order for me to have more time with my family and feel like I'm present with them, I really need to cut back on my hours. Like that's going to have to happen because right now I'm at work till 8 p.m. and that's not going to work. It's not going to allow me to hit that successful outcome of spending more time and being more engaged with my family if I can't be with them physically. And so, what must occur might be that I have to change my hours before the end of the year. I have to see if I can make that happen. And then just know that your team can help with the goals as well. Sometimes you don't have all the answers. Sometimes some of those challenges and those pain points that are hitting and resonating with you, they might already feel those too and be thinking about things that might be able to impact or make that important. So through asking them pointed questions, sometimes that's going to reveal ideas or concepts or thoughts that they have on growth and improvement. When you have really excellent team members around you, they're going to be thinking about these things too. I was just with that team yesterday and we're trying to empower the team members to solve some of those day-to-day things that come up in the office. Cause like you do this every day too. You probably feel a lot of the same things that we're feeling. One of the things they shared is like, we really want less patients that treat us poorly. They have a little bit of a culture where patients come in and kind of demand and sometimes are rude about it. And they want less of that. And so that you have to put goals into place in terms of how we're going to change the dynamic of how we engage with our patients. And the team was really instrumental in helping to share some thoughts that they have because they live that every single day on the other side of that tough patient. So I think you just have to ask yourself those questions. Always go back to look at one successful outcome at a time. And I really think we didn't mention this, but I think if you have more than 3, it's going to be pretty challenging. Yeah. I think that 2 or 3 is probably the sweet spot because then you're going to develop probably 2 or 3 goals throughout the year that feed into each of those outcomes. And you really can't handle realistically more than that and have success over the end of the year.
Yeah. And I'm a perfect example. I used to like create 92 goals. And I think we would all agree it's better to accomplish 3 well thought out, precise goals and do them well, and then set 3 more. And you're going to find once you achieve 3 precise goals that are attainable, the first thing that happens once you put a line through them is your team looks at you and they go, I think we could do better than that. And you go, what? That's crazy. It creates this collective confidence. Now, one more thing is we've talked about this. You didn't put this on our slides, but like part of writing a goal or figuring out a goal, sometimes you need the help of a coach. And I know the team that you're talking, it's a great team. And a lot of times we put our own self-limiting, beliefs into the goal. I can't change my hours. My patients will never come in. And that becomes a dead end. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And so a coach challenges the heck out of you and goes, absolutely not. That is absolutely not true. I coach practices all over the country. Someone works 7 to 3. You guys are going to change your hours and change your life. And we're going to go. We're going to do it now. And they go, what? And then they do it and they go, that's crazy. Everything got better like right away. And they're like, yeah, I just saved you thousands of days of your life, doing it the wrong way. So if you feel like you can't think, sometimes the value in having somebody on the outside that you trust help you think better. It's going to save you thousands and thousands of hours of your life. And there's so much magic and great stuff with your team too. So don't be afraid to do them. Another great, go ahead. No,
I was going to say, and before you jump ahead too, which I didn't put on here, is these goals are annual.
Yes.
And then you have to take that down into these bite-sized pieces. So quarter over quarter, if we have an annual goal, what can I do this quarter? What can I and my team do this quarter that's going to move us towards this overall goal? Because you can't have a goal of like, I want to have a system documented for everything that my administrative team does by the end of the year. Well, guess what? That's going to take some structure and planning, and you might get 5 each quarter accomplished, right? So you have to take these annual goals and then break those down into quarterly bites, which then you're talking about on a weekly basis with your team.
Yes, totally. And I'll tell you from experience, the iterations of these, once you do it and you achieve goals, then you do it again and you achieve your goals, and then you do it another time and you learn from them, whether they be failures or you achieve your goals. It starts to get like easier with the planning. Now the goals get bigger, don't get me wrong, but you start to feel like, wow, we can do better without giving more and more of your soul away by trying to do better. And that's the fun part about this. Another great tool, and you've heard about this, is a SWOT analysis. Now, the truth of a SWOT analysis is it's very, very powerful. It's strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And so our 3 differentiators, what we basically do is we help teams get more aligned, we help them work smarter, and we help them become healthier. So we spend all of our time getting people aligned on the same page, working together. And in each one of these buckets, you can identify what we're really good at. We have some really good strengths here. We have a really big weakness here. There's an opportunity here, and there's a threat here. And so, Miranda, speak more about breaking the SWOT into those 3 buckets.
Well, I wanted to throw this in because we are going to be working on this fall at our To the Top Study Club session in October, the 2 sessions that we're doing in October on the 18th and the 25th. We're going to be working through strategic planning, and we're developing a brand new tool for our community that's going to help incorporate the SWOT analysis into helping to develop those successful outcomes and goals. And so when you stop and break it down into these segments of aligned, smart, and healthy, there's very unique aspects within each of those in your practice. And if you just look at everything as a whole, it gets a little muddy. It's really too big of a picture, right? It's like we haven't done, put the laundry away in a month. Like I'm just going to let it keep sitting over there because it's too overwhelming to even tackle. But if we can break it up into smaller pieces, it's easier. So when we look at being aligned, smart, and healthy, we can pick apart the little nuances within each of those aspects of our practice, and we can start to look at smaller pieces, and that's just more digestible, especially when you're new to strategic planning and this is a new concept for you and it can feel like a little much. So I'm excited to introduce that to our community at the session this fall. And you can do this with nearly anything. So you can try this on your own for sure, give it a go. But once you get to the end of this, you can take the things that stand out the most to you, hey, we have this really awesome strength within our SMART piece. Like we're really good at this thing and I want to do that more. And so you can pull that out and you can say, okay, let me develop an outcome around, I want more of this. How can we set a goal then that helps to feed and accomplish that by the end of the year? And then how do I need to measure that? And I know we're going to be moving into targets next. Is what are we going to look at from a target standpoint throughout the year to see if we're actually making an impact and doing more of that thing that we want to do more of because we do it really well.
I love it. I love it. And by following this process, and we're going to show you how to do it here shortly, your team knows what you're up to. A lot of times they don't know what you're thinking. Why are we doing all of this? You're getting them involved in this process of where we're headed and how it all works. And so the next layer of this is now we're going to go to targets, which is the ground level. It's boots on the ground, what we're doing now. And targets are standardized milestones that serve as measurable checkpoints. So as you can see, we went 30,000, 15,000 feet. Now we want to make sure that what we're doing right now relates to all of those and that we're measuring the right things and we're doing the right things and we're staying on track to that goal. And you can have your team members keep you accountable to that. So they can say, how does this relate to that? And a lot of times dentists can't draw the connection, but it should be pretty straightforward that by doing this, it's going to help us get to that outcome. And our GAPS method, which you guys have heard before, is a single greatest resource that measures all of the opportunity that's relevant to the targets. Now, a lot of people ask us questions like, how do I do this? How do I do that? And when we take it apart with the GAPS, it's really a diagnostic tool that helps us identify where the pain is. And monitoring these targets is going to help you keep track of whether or not are we moving in the right direction? Are we winning or losing at the end of the day? Now, real short with the GAPS, this is really important. I just had a conversation with a dentist who's doing a major presentation at a major event. And he's like, I got to present on overhead. And I'm like, are you going to be talking about write-offs? He's like, no, I'm going to be talking about costs. I'm like, oh my gosh, you're missing a third of the conversation. So we've got what the effort gap is. That's identifying how much blood, sweat, and tears did you give this. It includes write-offs. Then you've got your collections. How much are we collecting that's collectible, of our net production? How much do we collect? It should be 100% or more. Now you could talk about overhead because it relates to the rest. And then lastly, you've got your cash flow gap, which your P&L does not show you where your loans are and your tax payments are. So if you're comparing your net income at the bottom of your P&L with other dentists or CPA firms that are telling you you're doing well, it doesn't speak to how much money you're making, because at the end of the day, we got to be able to know, are we moving in the right direction or not? So I don't want to spend any time on that, but I want to give you some perspective on what the gaps are. You follow the gaps process, you're going to have a million questions. How is this? Why is that? And it starts to tell you what's going on. It's like taking all the data in treatment planning around bone and, periodepts, all that kind of stuff. It's the photo. It's the CBCT.
There you go.
Or how you diagnose your practice. And then you want to align your OGT with your team. We're going to walk you through this. It's the objectives, goals, and targets. And it's important to share your strategic goals with your team because they're going to help you. They're going to go, I know how to do that, or I have an idea. And it really creates this cohesive feeling that you have around the vision. There's nothing more exciting than people say, I'm totally in on where we're going. I am all in on where we're going. And it also increases the probability of success. Now, a couple tools we use is we use an action planner. We also talk about weekly team meetings. That becomes the fulcrum for how you make these changes. You got to be able to land the airplane and do airplane maintenance on the ground, not while it's in the air. A cool thing about the OGT tool is it also provides a feedback loop, and you could say, along with check-ins, and everyone can be assigned the number and owning the target. So before I show everybody, I have 2 examples, but anything else you want to add about that, Miranda?
No, I think you're right on track with this. I have one little thing, and I know we don't have time to dive deep into it, but with the targets, the gaps give us nearly everything. Every now and then there's some little thing where we might have an additional target we want to throw in the mix. So if you are trying to build a more solid team culture and have less turnover, and you might then be monitoring for, what is my turnover rate? I want my turnover rate to be 15% less than it was last year. That might be a metric or a target that you build in. Every now and then people have a couple of additional targets. But those targets are going to be reported through this process. So I'm excited for you to just keep moving forward with this piece right now. Nothing more to add on that just yet.
Yeah, so I know we've been throwing a lot of framework and thoughts in the strategy behind doing this, but now we're actually going to do it with 2 OGTs. These are actual clients that we have and actually using the tool. So you can see here, if you're watching the video version of this, it's the brainstorming aspect of successful outcomes and then drafting them. And again, you don't need to really think about this. Sometimes the OGT tool, and you can download it as a result of watching this webinar. Sometimes just pour a glass of wine. If it's at night that you do your best thinking, I do my best thinking in the morning. So if I've exercised, have a fresh cup of coffee, it's a great time to start diagnosing and brainstorming some ideas. This area gets messy. Don't think too much about it. We're just going to brainstorm. What are the challenges, obstacles, and stressors? And like we shared earlier, what do I want more of? Think out loud. There's no rules here. And what do I want less? And it's the start of the clarification process. So I'll give you a couple examples. Number 1, this dentist said, bottom line, I just want a more motivated, joyful, compassionate team dedicated to caring for my patients. Bottom line, I just want a group of people that are a little bit more happy, a little bit more committed. Okay, now we've got some work to do. Number 2, I want predictability. I want effective systems that ensure an effective workflow, fostering predictability and accountability. I want things to work the way I want them to work. And then also, I want achieving financial success, working less hours, and allowing for more vacation and increased quality time with my loved ones. Now, those are 3 very specific outcomes. Now, like with a great coach like Miranda, we can start to go to work on them. And now we're going to start to go into, so that's kind of the 30,000-foot view. Now we're going to go into the 15,000-foot view, which is going to be our 1-year goals. And now we're going to start to take those 3 outcomes, and we're going to start to get more specific about all 3. So the question becomes, how are we going to do that? What are we going to do in order to be able to support this? Well, Miranda's my coach, so she's going to help me think clearly about this. In order to achieve those 3 outcomes, there's a couple staples to my habits that I have to do here. Number 1, I have to have consistent communication rhythms, which means I got to start doing huddles. Well, my huddles aren't that great. Well, you're going to start doing huddles, you're going to make them great. You're going to start doing team meetings. I don't like doing team meetings. Well, that's why we're here in the first place. We're going to start doing check-ins. What are check-ins? Check-ins are one-on-ones with team members. Oh my gosh, now I don't have time for dentistry. The truth of it is that silly thinking. Now, when you start to do these things, you can start to communicate clearly, and you're amazed by how your team could help you. We're going to implement block scheduling. The schedule's a mess. We're going to start working the hours we should work. We're going to start putting the right procedures for the right patients, the right time of day. And you know how you build a great practice? It's just one patient, one day at a time. We're going to implement fully fee-for-service, decreasing our insurance write-offs. Now, you don't have to do that, but that's what this doctor wanted. And then I want to create clarities and roles and responsibilities. Now, as you can see, there's 5 very specific goals. True to Miranda's would say, what you said earlier, I think 2 to 5 is max 5. You should never have like 6 goals. It's just, I want to decrease my overhead percentage. If it's at 71%, I reduce it by 8 to 10%. You're talking about a lot of profit that goes right to the bottom line. So as you can imagine, these are 5 really succinct goals that match up with the outcomes that I want at the 30,000 feet. So anything else you would add?
The one small thing I would say, if you put that back up, is an easy way to remember is these are annual goals. Is I even like to write them out as saying, by the end of this year, we will have decreased overhead by this. By the end of this year, We will have clarity in roles and responsibilities by having a job description for each seat or something of that nature. By the end of this year, we will be fully fee for service, because otherwise we can forget sometimes it's an annual goal, and we get, especially if we have a high sense of urgency. And so when you put that at the front of that goal, it can be helpful. And then you can say, this quarter, we're working on team meetings and huddles. Next quarter, we're going to start working on scheduling. And you can break these down into those smaller digestible pieces, but starting it with that phrase of by the end of this year or by this time next year, something like that.
Yeah. Now, this is a really important part of the webinar. And if you're watching the video of this, I want you to take a screenshot of this and see how different this is. This was huge. We have a coach, and her name is Jamie, and she works with very large organizations. And she basically slapped me in the face and like, goals are not money. Goals are sustainable, repeatable assets that you create that generate more money than you could ever imagine. So think about the doctor on this screen that's an actual client. This doctor implemented block scheduling. It transcended any production goal that he had for the next couple of years, because that's a sustainable, repeatable asset that he and his team created for the business. He also moved away from being dependent on any type of insurance and went out of network. That is a process or an asset that gives you a return year over year over year over year over year, instead of saying, let's grow collections by 10%. Do you see how that works? He also created roles and responsibilities that are super clear, outlined. Now people know who does what. Here's a question for you if you're listening. Who does what? And make sure everybody knows that. That pays dividends for years. And he decreased his overhead, usually as a result of this, that continues to add to the profit year over year. And let's not forget the number one goal that he had, which was to create an effective communication rhythm in the office, which is I want to tell myself a better story about my huddles. And we're going to make that happen. Now today starts like better. It's just flowing better. I want better communication with my team. Now my team meetings, they're not perfect, but they're actually pretty good. And I show up, people are engaged. People feel like they know what's going on. We feel like we're a better team as a result of staying away from patients and focusing on us and talking about things that matter. I also am retaining people in check-ins now longer than ever. They're sharing a lot of stuff because they're becoming vulnerable, and they're telling me about things they're unhappy with way in advance than me coming to me one day going, you know what? I got to talk to you, doc. I think I should move on. When you do a check-in effectively, you're going to create a great relationship with a human being that you work with, and they're going to tell you everything, sometimes too much, but you got to be committed to the process. So as you can see, these goals are bigger than money. They're bigger than just a little bit here, a little bit there. And I think everything, you can tie a why into this too. If I'm the leader of this practice, any team member can come to me and go, why are we doing this? And I can go, I'm so glad you asked, because I want you to have a better life. I want me to have a better life. I want our patients to have a better experience. Now we're talking about things that transcend money or other things like that. So let me share number 2, and then we can open it up for questions, just so you guys get an example of this. I always like to take education where somebody tells me what to do and then shows me how to do it. And that's what I hope you guys get out today. So let's take another one. Here's another practice, completely different practice. And again, these are the rules. So their 3 outcomes, long-term, 30,000 feet, were like, I just want a fully staffed practice. Okay, let's just start there. I have positions I need to fill, and I want to retain people. Okay, look, I can't get people to answer ads, and I got 2 open positions. Okay, number 2, I want comfortability and understanding of practice data. I want to know what I'm doing, and I want accountability. I want to get healthier. And number 3, I just want a predictable and profitable schedule. I feel like we're scheduling patients at all times, chasing everything. I want to go to work knowing today's going to work and today's predictable. That's what you need. You need predictability. When you have high levels of predictability, the happier you become. So you can see, you can feel the emotion, and you can almost get a visceral reaction yourself around these 3 things when you have more of what this doctor wants in here. And so let's go into the clarification process. And these are the actual goals. that the doctor came up with. And there's 6 on here. Now, you don't have to do all 6, but you can certainly give voice to them. By the end of 2024, I want a unique employment proposition, which is something that makes this place really special, that people want to work here. And I want to have it utilized to have a fully staffed practice. By the end of 2024, we'll have 10% less turnover rate. By the end of 2024, which is number 3, we will have successfully be using the systems and training new team members. By the end of 2024, you can see this doctor's being super specific. We'll have a full year of data recorded, including production, collections, days worked, overhead, and financing activity, resulting in confidence in our true profit. And by the end of 2024, we will have elevated and revised our block scheduling to maximize efficiency and reach annual production goal. Now, this doctor did put it in there because that's the byproduct of that. And lastly, I want to have full capacity of our hygiene schedule and have hygiene block scheduling in place that allows for consistent and timely care for our patients. So
can I chime in really quick? I won't take too long, I promise. I know we're at the end of the webinar, but this one does a really great job of showing you how the goals feed directly back into the successful outcomes. If you look at number 1 and you look at number 2 and you look at number 3, all 3 of those are going to feed into your successful outcome number 1 of having a fully staffed practice with employment fulfillment and more than likely retention, if we can accomplish those goals. When you look at number 4, we're looking at that and we're saying by the end of this year, if I can be recording this data and learning and understanding this information, I'm going to fulfill my successful outcome number 2, which is being comfortable and understanding the data and having accountability around it in our practice. And then those last 2, it looks as if those are speaking to that predictable and profitable schedule. We're going to maximize our block scheduling and we're going to do it to a production goal that fits what we're trying to achieve. And we're going to have hygiene blocks in place so that there's consistency with the care that we're providing. And they feed directly into how are we going to actionably impact and create and be successful with those outcomes that we selected. This one's a great example. Good choice, Kirk.
Hey, so well said, Miranda. And I'm going to make this simple. This isn't always the case, but let's imagine for a second. This is a dentist with 12 team members. I have 6 goals. If I was going to make this simple, I could break us all up into 2-people committees and we could all tackle these goals per year. Now, we like the idea of doing it per quarter and designing priorities around them. But think about this. You could keep these same 6 goals for the entire year. And every quarter, we have a committee and a champion who's like, I'll take the last one and Susie's going to help me with that one. And we're going to build the priority around this and we're going to make this happen little by little. And then they can start to use KPIs to show us if we're on track or off track. Again, you're building a sustainable asset that gives you a return year over year over year. You're also going to be creating systems to support this. And every time you create a system, you save thousands of hours in the future. Your practice, by choosing this process in strategic planning, it gets better. It gets healthier. It becomes more aligned. It becomes more healthy, and it's definitely getting smarter. And if you're 30 years old and you're watching this, you have 3 decades of practice. You have just simplified your planning process for the rest of your career. You do OGT every quarter. Every year, we just make sure that the 30,000-foot view relates to the 15,000-foot view and the ground view. And then the cool thing about being a leader is you don't need to know everything. You actually can be vulnerable and go, I don't know how we're going to do that. That's where I need your help, So it becomes a very cool process. And ultimately, you are going to pick targets. I won't leave those out. And we've got a whole host of targets, which are going to be numbers or certain milestones that you're going to want to improve. And in future webinars and masterclasses, we'll be able to show you those. But oftentimes people start here. There's got to be a sustainable, repeatable asset that makes these targets the byproduct instead of the goal. So
yeah, we have a wealth of information in the BPA on the gaps and all of those targets that fit within that gap. So if that piques your curiosity at all, like head on over and check it out. There's just search gaps and you'll find so much information on those specific targets.
Absolutely. So a couple final takeaways. Thank you guys for listening. We're going to open up for questions here. Like, just start planning now. That's why we're doing this webinar. I hope you get a lot out of this. Start using the OGT tool. If you have a challenge, just raise your hands. We're so happy to help you. And don't wait until December 31st. And if you aren't planning for the future, you aren't only not moving forward, but you're falling behind. Like, you don't have a day to waste. I don't have a day to waste, and you don't have a day to waste. Effective planning that's clear saves you so much time. It creates energy. It creates incredible outcomes. And so use this tool. I promise you it's going to be impactful in your life and in your practice. So let's do this. I'll stop sharing here. Your thoughts, final thoughts. Miranda, give us the wrap-up thoughts here.
Well, my final thoughts are, if you want help or you want to learn more about this, come join us. We're doing this in October, twice, back to back, October 18th and 25th. We're going to be talking about this in a full day program to help doctors work through this tool, as well as the SWOT tool and other challenges around strategic planning. And you don't have to do it alone. Like we said, my most favorite thing to be is helpful. And I know that's the same philosophy this organization has. We want to be able to help you do this. And on top of that, just how we started off this webinar, this is a beautiful profession, and I want you to feel the joy that can come from what you can create. Being an entrepreneur in this way is unique. A lot of people don't think of dentistry as entrepreneurship. You think of it as your craft, but it really is. And you have so much opportunity to be fulfilled and feel joy from this profession. And we just want to help you get there. And if you land the plane and think about it and what do you want, and then build that into these tangible, actionable items day in and day out, you can make it happen. And we can help you if you want some help. And we do have one question.
Wait, I want to just I saw that question. I want you to answer both things. So because you're so brilliant, I want to piggyback on that. A big reason a lot of you became dentists was freedom. It was the choice in how to serve people, how to do it. There's a huge passion around your choice of freedom in how you practice and experience yourself at work. I promise you, with the help of a great coach and the OGT tool, you can reclaim that deep subjective pain, because that's where a lot of it comes from. Most dentists that are unhappy, they're missing the freedom. They don't have the freedom of time. They don't have the freedom of choice, because an insurance company is making decisions for their patients, and it makes you very unhappy. It steals your why. And so when you reclaim that freedom, I'm telling you, it becomes the ultimate expression of meaningful work. You're like, I don't care. I'll tell you a quick story. My son broke his patella. And it's sad for us because he's beginning his junior year and he was so excited. We went to the best surgeon in Milwaukee. And he said this, I do things differently here. I do it the way I know it should be done. It's so powerful when you can exercise the power of freedom and take care of the people the way you know you can take care of them. And I promise you, you'll be busier than ever. This guy is so busy. He squeezed us in on a day where I know he wasn't supposed to be. He's like, I'm just going to do this.
And Kirk, I want to throw one question on the top of that I think sums this up even like, you and I could piggyback off of each other for hours and hours. This is a problem. No one should allow us to be alone together on a webinar. When you just said that the freedom that comes from this profession and owning your own dental practice. And I just have one question, which is just like, what are you willing to do to get it? Like, what are you willing to do?
Great question. And what's the alternative?
Right. The alternative is you're imprisoned to this burden, this feeling, these pains. They only get worse over time. And if you want to feel that freedom and you want to feel that joy, just what are you willing to do? Yeah, and we can help you do it.
And sadly, a lot of people let these pains linger, and so they feel like they're insurmountable, and they just say, I just got to sell. I got to get out of this. I need somebody else to own this. And then they go to work for someone else who tells them what to do. And that's a whole nother conversation. We love this profession so much. We want you to keep your freedom, reclaim it. And at the end of the day, this profession needs leaders. We need entrepreneurs that can create economies and they can give back to what we truly need, which is, entrepreneurs that can create value. Now, there's a great question. You can do it. Okay. Great question from Jen Man. Is it possible? I want you to go first. Is it possible to go fee for service within a year? Most of our patients have insurance.
Well, I love the phrase, yes, and I would say yes. Is it possible? Yes. Mm-hmm. Now, and there's a lot of questions that we would want to ask. There's a lot of information that we would want to know to make sure that you're set up for success so that on the other end of that, you still maintain a really healthy patient base and a healthy practice. But can you do it? Yes.
Yeah.
That's totally agree. Answer.
You can do it. It depends. Like, I wouldn't want you to put your life at financial risk, but I mean, with 28 years of doing this, I had many people like, I don't need to look any data. I just wrote all the letters, and I do not recommend that. And the training wheels came off the bike today, and half their practice left, and they had to figure it out. And you know what? All of them are thriving now. All of them. No one ever. Like, some of them, it was a long road back to get to the thriving, but they cut the cord and training wheels came off and they had to ride a bike with half the schedule. And that does work. And I don't recommend that.
I wouldn't recommend you do it without a plan.
I agree.
Some really deep thought and your team, being aligned with your team.
And Jen Man, I'm going to say this without knowing you, insurance is not your problem. Your real problem is how many of your patients, have you built a patient base of people that come in and pay your full fee? A lot of people default to, well, insurance is the problem. No, if you let insurance infiltrate your practice, it'll take over and multiply and your phone will ring like crazy. And then you'll wake up 2 years, 3 years later going, well, 90% of my practice is insurance. The ultimate measure of a dental practice is how many people come to your office because of you, not because they're on your plan. They come to you and say, you're my person, and they choose you and they pay your full fee. And again, if you have 0 people, let's get to 100. Then let's get to 200. Then let's get to 400. Then let's get to 600 people that do that. Then let's get to 1,200 per doctor that come in and pay your full fee, and they choose you. And now that is the sweet spot. Now you can choose where to go from next, but that's really all you need to create an amazing practice. And it also recession-proofs you from all these other challenges ultimately. So, and I say, yes, you could do it in a year, but I'll say what Pete Dawson said. It usually takes 5 to 7 years to become an overnight success, which means this: use the strategic planning tool, get a great coach, set the sail. 5 years from now, you'll go, I can't even believe we were doing that 5 years ago. This is a different practice. These are different patients. This is a different level of care, and it's certainly a different level of joy. So, great question. So,
somebody asked if they're going to get the recording, and yes, and this will live in our BPA platform. So that recording is available there too. And I just want to say out loud for anyone that's not actively watching the chat, if you are interested in the CE codes are now in the chat as well. So you're going to need those in order to receive your CE for this webinar.
I have like one more hour of thoughts. So
I'm telling you, we could go on and on and on.
Yeah.
We need Barrett here. We need Barrett here to.
We do. He'll keep us on the rails here. So awesome. Well, Miranda, thank you so much for being on.
Yeah.
That was awesome.
Thanks. This was great.
Yeah.
Thanks to everybody else that was on.
Absolutely. Keep showing up. We're going to keep bringing it. We have so many other topics to cover. And lastly, I'll say this. We hope you guys enjoyed this. And our main goal is to help you create a better practice and a better life. So tell your friends, keep showing up, join us at the BPA. I promise you'll love it. And please join us for the To the Top Study Club, where you'll get to learn from some of the greatest minds in dentistry. So hope you guys enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll see you soon.